Hello, everyone. I want to have a heart-to-heart with you today about something we all face, something that feels like it's pulling us down from the inside. It's those moments when we're not at war with the world, but with ourselves. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That feeling where no matter what you do, it just feels like you're stuck, like you're your own worst enemy. Today, I'm going to share 9 reasons why you might be struggling with yourself, and more importantly, how to rise above it. Let's get real and talk about this. When we talk about embracing your true self, it sounds simple, but it's actually one of the most profound and challenging tasks you can undertake in life. The world around us constantly sends messages about who we should be, how we should act, and what we should value. From the moment we are born, we are surrounded by expectations. Our families, friends, society, and even media create invisible guidelines that shape how we see ourselves. But at some point, we have to ask, am I living according to who I truly am, or am I trying to meet the expectations of others? Many of us find ourselves playing different roles based on what we think will make us accepted, loved, or successful. It's easy to get lost in the act of conforming. You may not even realize you're doing it because it's been a part of your life for so long. But there comes a time when you start feeling this inner tension, this discomfort that tells you something's not right. That tension is your authentic self calling out, reminding you that there is more to who you are than the version of yourself you've been showing the world. The fear of judgment is often at the root of why people struggle to embrace their true selves. You might fear that if you show who you really are, people won't accept you. They might judge you or even reject you. And rejection hurts. It's wired into us to avoid it. As social beings, we naturally want to fit in, to feel like we belong. But what happens when the price of belonging is losing touch with yourself? You start to feel disconnected, not just from others, but from your own soul. Living a life that's not yours is like wearing a mask that slowly suffocates you. You might seem fine on the outside, but inside you're constantly fighting to keep up the act. A major reason people struggle to embrace their true selves is the need for approval. We seek validation from our parents, our peers, our partners, and even from society at large. This need is deeply ingrained in us from childhood. We grow up being praised for good behavior, good grades, and for following the rules. So naturally, we start to associate love and approval with how well we fit into the mold set for us. But as we get older, we start to realize that chasing approval from others is a never-ending cycle. No matter how much validation you receive, there will always be more to chase, and you'll never truly feel fulfilled until you begin to approve of yourself. To truly embrace who you are, you need to begin with self-awareness. Self-awareness is the foundation of authenticity. It means looking inward and being honest about who you are, your values, your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions, and your fears. This isn't always easy because it requires you to confront parts of yourself that you may have been avoiding. But once you start the journey of self-discovery, you open up a path to personal freedom. You no longer feel the need to fit into someone else's definition of success or happiness. You start to define those things for yourself. It's important to recognize that your true self is constantly evolving. Who you were at 15 is not who you are at 25, and who you are at 25, and who you are at 25 will not be who you are at 40. People often cling to identities they've outgrown because it's what they know, even when it no longer fits who they are. But part of embracing your true self is allowing yourself the freedom to grow and change. Don't be afraid to let go of old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. Just because something was true for you in the past doesn't mean it has to define you forever. The more you give yourself permission to evolve, the more authentic your life becomes. Another obstacle to embracing your true self is the external noise of societal expectations. Society tends to celebrate certain paths in life success and traditional careers, material wealth, physical appearance, and those who don't fit into these conventional narratives often feel pressured to mold themselves to fit. But the truth is, the things society deems important may not be what truly matters to you. If you spend your life chasing society's version of happiness, you may find yourself achieving success in the eyes of others, but feeling empty inside. Real fulfillment comes from living a life that aligns with your values, not someone else's. The journey toward embracing your true self also requires vulnerability. Vulnerability means showing up as you are without the facade, without the layers of protection that hide your true nature. This is scary because it means opening yourself up to criticism, rejection, and the possibility of failure. But it's also where true connection and fulfillment lie. When you allow yourself to be seen for who you truly are, you give others the permission to do the same. Authenticity breeds deeper relationships, stronger bonds, and a sense of inner peace. It may take time to find people who appreciate you for you, but when you do, those connections will be far more meaningful than any relationships built on pretense. One of the most liberating aspects of embracing your true self is that it allows you to stop living for external validation and start living from within. When you know who you are and what you stand for, other people's opinions become less important. You stop needing to impress and you start focusing on what brings you joy and purpose. This doesn't mean you'll never face doubt or insecurity again, but those feelings will no longer control you. They'll be like passing clouds in the sky, temporary and fleeting, because you'll have a solid sense of self that isn't swayed by the winds of other people's approval. Many people hesitate to fully embrace themselves because they worry they're too much or not enough, too loud, too quiet, too ambitious, not ambitious enough, the list goes on. But the reality is these judgments often come from a place of comparison. When you stop comparing yourself to others and start appreciating your unique qualities, the struggle begins to dissipate. You are not meant to be like anyone else. Your strengths, quirks, and even your flaws are what make you who you are. Embracing your true self means accepting all of it, the good, the messy, and everything in between. You might also struggle to embrace your true self because of past experiences. Maybe you were criticized for being yourself in the past, or maybe you've been through situations that made you question your worth. But no matter what has happened, you always have the choice to reclaim your identity. You are not defined by what others have said or done to you. You have the power to rewrite your narrative, to step into the person you are today, not the person someone tried to make you believe you were. Ultimately, the journey to embracing your true self is a lifelong one. It's not something you wake up one day and magically achieve. There will be days when you doubt yourself, when you slip back into old habits of seeking approval or conforming to expectations. That's okay. What matters is that you keep coming back to yourself. Keep peeling back the layers and finding the courage to show up as you are. Because when you do, you create a life that is rich with meaning, purpose, and joy, not because it looks good to others, but because it feels right for you. Failure is something most of us go to great lengths to avoid. It's often seen as a sign of weakness, a lack of ability, or something shameful. From a young age, we are conditioned to see failure as negative. In school, failing a test is something to be feared. In our personal lives, making mistakes can feel like a personal shortcoming. At work, failing to meet expectations can lead to embarrassment or even career setbacks. Over time, this fear of failure can become so deeply ingrained that it starts to dictate our choices, limiting what we pursue and how we approach challenges. We hesitate, hold back, and often give up before we even try, all because of a fear of failing. But failure, when viewed through a different lens, is not the enemy. It's not something to be avoided at all costs. In fact, failure is a necessary part of growth and success. It's a teacher, a guide, and a stepping stone to becoming more than you were before. The most successful people in the world, the ones we admire for their achievements and their resilience, did not get to where they are by avoiding failure. They embraced it, learned from it, and used it as fuel to keep moving forward. And yet, for many of us, the fear of failing still feels like an insurmountable barrier. One of the reasons we fear failure so much is because we tend to attach it to our self-worth. If we fail, we often believe it means something about who we are. We take failure personally, as if it defines us or diminishes our value. But failure does not define you. How you respond to it does. Failure is simply an outcome, one data point in a much larger journey. It's an opportunity to reflect, adjust, and try again. When we stop attaching our self-worth to whether or not we succeed on the first try, failure loses its power over us. It becomes something we can face with curiosity rather than fear. Many people fail once and give up. They believe that failure is a sign that they are not cut out for something, that they lack the ability or talent to succeed. But the truth is, most achievements require multiple attempts, a lot of learning, and many setbacks along the way. A road to success is rarely a straight line. In fact, it's often filled with detours, roadblocks, and unexpected challenges. But every time you fail, you gain valuable insight. You learn what doesn't work, which brings you one step closer to finding out what does. The people who succeed are not necessarily the ones who avoid failure, but the ones who keep going despite it. Another reason people fear failure is because they fear the judgment of others. What will people think if I fail? Will they see me as incompetent or incapable? This fear of judgment can be crippling. It can stop you from taking risks, trying new things, or pursuing your dreams. But here's the thing, people are not thinking about your failures as much as you think they are. Most people are too busy dealing with their own lives to spend much time thinking about your setbacks. And even if they do judge you, their judgment is a reflection of their own fears and insecurities, not a reflection of your worth. When you start to see failure as part of the process rather than something to be avoided, you give yourself permission to try things you wouldn't have before. You take risks, you put yourself out there, and you give yourself the chance to grow. Failure teaches you resilience. Every time you get back up after falling, you build strength. You become more adaptable, more creative, and more determined. These are qualities that lead to success, not just in terms of achieving goals, but in terms of personal growth and fulfillment. Failure also pushes you to innovate. When things don't go according to plan, you're forced to think outside the box to come up with new strategies and solutions. Some of the greatest innovations in history came about because someone failed at what they were originally trying to do. Failure sparks creativity because it challenges you to find a different way forward. When everything goes smoothly, there's little incentive to think beyond the current approach. But when you're faced with failure, you're pushed to stretch your mind and explore new possibilities. One of the biggest lessons failure can teach you is humility. It reminds you that you don't know everything, that you still have room to learn and grow. This humility is essential for success because it keeps you open to feedback, willing to adapt, and ready to keep improving. Without failure, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you've got it all figured out. But the truth is, growth is a continuous process. There's always more to learn, and failure is one of the most effective teachers you will ever have. It's also important to recognize that failure builds empathy. When you face setbacks and challenges, you can relate to others who are going through the same thing. You understand the struggles, the disappointment, and the frustration. This empathy allows you to connect with others on a deeper level, to offer support and encouragement when they need it most. It reminds you that everyone is on their own journey, and no one is immune to failure. We're all just doing the best we can, learning as we go. One of the most empowering realizations you can have is that failure is not permanent. Just because you failed at something doesn't mean you'll never succeed. It doesn't mean the door is closed forever. Failure is temporary. It's a moment in time, not the end of the road. When you adopt a growth mindset, a belief that your abilities can be developed through effort and learning, you start to see failure as a stepping stone, not a dead end. You realize that you have the power to improve, to try again, and to keep moving forward. It's also worth noting that what looks like failure in the short term can sometimes turn out to be a blessing in the long term. Sometimes what we perceive as a failure is actually the universe redirecting us towards something better. A job opportunity that falls through might lead to a better one down the road. A relationship that doesn't work out might make space for someone who's a better fit for you. When you trust that failure is not the final chapter, you start to see it as part of a larger unfolding story, one that can still lead to success and fulfillment. Many people think that avoiding failure is the key to success, but the truth is, playing it safe often leads to stagnation. When you're so focused on not failing, you limit yourself, you avoid taking risks, and you stay within the confines of what's comfortable and familiar. But growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when you stretch yourself, when you push beyond your limits, and when you're willing to face the possibility of failure. The greatest rewards often come from the greatest risks. Failure also helps you develop grit, the ability to persevere through challenges and setbacks. Grit is one of the most important predictors of success because it's what keeps you going when things get tough. It's easy to stay motivated when everything is going well, but true success comes when you keep going, even when things aren't working out. Grit is what separates those who give up from those who ultimately succeed. And grit is something that's built through failure, not through avoiding it. One of the most freeing aspects of embracing failure is that it allows you to stop striving for perfection. Perfection is an illusion, and chasing it only leads to frustration and burnout. When you accept that failure is part of the process, you stop trying to be perfect and start focusing on progress. You allow yourself to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to keep moving forward. This shift in mindset can bring a sense of peace and freedom because you're no longer tied to an unrealistic standard. You can embrace the messiness of growth, knowing that each step forward, even the imperfect ones, are bringing you closer to your goals. It's also important to remember that failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. Every successful person has faced failure, often many times. The difference is that they didn't let failure stop them. They learned from it, adapted, and kept going. Success is not about never failing, it's about what you do after you fail. It's about getting back up, trying again, and continuing to pursue your goals even when the path is difficult. When you start to view failure as a necessary and valuable part of the journey, you unlock a new level of resilience and determination. You stop fearing it and start using it to your advantage. Failure is not something to be avoided, it's something to be embraced because it holds the keys to your growth, your success, and ultimately your fulfillment. We all have voices in our heads, and these voices often shape how we see ourselves, how we navigate the world, and how we approach our dreams and goals. But here's the thing, not all of those voices belong to us. From a very young age, we are influenced by external opinions and ideas, those of our parents, teachers, friends, and society as a whole. Over time, these external voices become so deeply embedded in our minds that we start mistaking them for our own. We start believing that what they say about us is true. And often these voices are not kind. They are critical, judgmental, and limiting, telling us all the reasons why we can't achieve what we want, why we're not good enough, or why we shouldn't even bother trying. These voices, if left unchecked, can become a powerful barrier between you and the life you're meant to live. One of the biggest challenges we face is learning to recognize when we are listening to the wrong voices. The voices of doubt, fear, and insecurity can be so loud that they drown out our own inner voice, the one that speaks to our true desires, our passions, and our potential. When you listen to the wrong voices, it's easy to feel stuck, unsure, or lost. You may find yourself questioning every decision, second-guessing every move, and doubting your ability to succeed. The wrong voices keep you playing small, telling you that you're not ready, that you don't have what it takes, or that the dream you're chasing is too big for someone like you. These voices of doubt and negativity often stem from past experiences. Maybe someone in your life told you that you weren't smart enough, talented enough, or worthy enough. Maybe you've internalized criticism from a parent, a teacher, or a peer who made you feel like you didn't measure up. Or perhaps society's expectations have convinced you that success looks a certain way, and that if you don't fit into that mold, you're not capable of achieving greatness. Whatever the source, these external voices become ingrained in your mind, and before you know it, they start to influence the way you see yourself and your potential. It's also important to recognize that some of these voices come from our cultural and societal conditioning. We live in a world that tends to celebrate certain paths and discourage others. Society often defines success in terms of money, status, or external achievement, and if you don't fit into that narrative, you may start to feel like you're failing or falling behind. The pressure to conform to these societal standards can be overwhelming, and it can lead you to question your own desires and ambitions. You may start to think that what you want isn't valid or that the path you're on isn't the right one simply because it doesn't align with what society deems as successful. The problem with listening to these external voices is that they can prevent you from living a life that is truly your own. When you allow the wrong voices to guide your decisions, you end up pursuing goals that aren't aligned with your true passions. You may find yourself in a career that doesn't fulfill you, in relationships that don't support you, or living a life that doesn't feel authentic. Over time, this disconnect between who you are and the life you're living can lead to frustration, dissatisfaction, and a deep sense of unhappiness. You might find yourself constantly striving for something more, yet feeling like no matter how hard you try, you're never truly fulfilled. One of the most powerful steps you can take to break free from the wrong voices is to start tuning into your own. Your inner voice, the one that speaks from a place of intuition, truth, and authenticity, knows what's best for you. It knows your strengths, your passions, and your deepest desires, but often it's drowned out by the noise of external opinions and judgments. Learning to listen to your own voice takes practice, but it's one of the most liberating things you can do for yourself. It allows you to start making decisions from a place of alignment rather than fear or obligation. When you listen to your inner voice, you begin to trust yourself more. You start to believe in your ability to make choices that are right for you, even if they don't make sense to others. One of the ways you can start tuning out the wrong voices is by becoming more mindful of the thoughts that run through your mind on a daily basis. Pay attention to the inner dialogue that plays out when you're faced with a challenge, a decision, or a new opportunity. Are the thoughts encouraging and supportive, or are they filled with doubt and negativity? If the voice in your head is constantly telling you that you're not good enough, it's important to recognize that this voice is not your own. It's a reflection of past conditioning, and it doesn't define who you are or what you're capable of achieving. The more you become aware of these negative thought patterns, the easier it becomes to challenge them and replace them with thoughts that are more aligned with your true self. Another way to silence the wrong voices is to surround yourself with people who lift you up and encourage you to be your authentic self. The company you keep plays a huge role in shaping your mindset and your beliefs about what's possible. If you're constantly surrounded by people who doubt you, criticize you, or project their own fears onto you, it's going to be much harder to listen to your own voice. But when you surround yourself with people who believe in you, who support your dreams, and who see the potential in you, even when you don't see it in yourself, you start to feel more confident in your ability to go after what you truly want. The right support system can help you tune out the wrong voices and stay focused on your own path. It's also important to remember that listening to your own voice doesn't mean you'll never face doubt or fear again. Those emotions are part of the human experience, and they will always be there in some form. But the difference is that when you're listening to your own voice, you don't let those emotions control you. You acknowledge them, but you don't let them dictate your actions. You move forward in spite of the doubt and fear because you trust that your inner voice is guiding you in the right direction. The journey of learning to listen to your own voice is not always easy. It requires you to question long-held beliefs, to step outside your comfort zone, and to challenge the narratives that have been ingrained in you for years. But it's also one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. When you start to trust your own voice, you begin to live a life that is true to who you are. You stop trying to fit into other people's expectations, and you start pursuing the things that truly matter to you. This doesn't mean the path will always be clear or easy, but it does mean that the path will be yours. One of the most freeing realizations you can have is that no one else's opinion matters more than your own. The wrong voices will always be there, but they don't have to define your choices or your life. You have the power to choose whose voice you listen to, and the most important voice you'll ever hear is your own. When you stop seeking validation from others and start validating yourself, you unlock a sense of freedom and empowerment that allows you to pursue your goals with confidence and clarity. You realize that you don't need anyone else's permission to go after what you want. You don't need anyone else to believe in you, as long as you believe in yourself. Learning to listen to your own voice is an ongoing process, and it requires patience and self-compassion. There will be times when the wrong voices try to creep back in, telling you that you're not good enough or that you can't do it. But the more you practice tuning into your inner voice, the more you'll be able to recognize when those wrong voices are taking over, and you'll have the tools to quiet them. Your inner voice is always there, waiting to guide you. All you have to do is listen. The relationships we form in life have a profound impact on who we become. They shape our thoughts, our beliefs, and how we see ourselves in the world. While we all know the importance of having supportive people around us, it's easy to underestimate just how influential the people in our lives really are. Whether we realize it or not, the people we spend the most time with play a major role in determining the quality of our lives, our mindset, and even our potential for success. Surrounding yourself with the wrong people, those who are negative, unsupportive, or toxic, can drain your energy, hold you back, and keep you from reaching your goals. On the other hand, when you're surrounded by people who lift you up, challenge you to grow, and believe in your potential, it can propel you forward in ways you might not have imagined. One of the reasons relationships are so powerful is because we are by nature social beings. We seek connection, approval, and understanding from those around us. This desire for connection can sometimes lead us to maintain relationships that aren't necessarily good for us. Maybe it's a friendship you've had for years or a family member you feel obligated to stay close to, even though their influence on you is more negative than positive. We often tolerate relationships that drain us because we fear confrontation or we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But in doing so, we end up sacrificing our own well-being and growth. We allow ourselves to be held back by people who don't align with our values, our vision, or our goals. It's important to recognize that not all relationships are meant to last forever. And that's okay. As you grow and evolve, so too should your relationships. The people who were right for you at one point in your life may not be right for you now, and that's a natural part of the journey. But many of us struggle with the idea of letting go. We fear that if we walk away from certain relationships, we'll be left alone or we'll be judged for being selfish. But letting go of toxic or limiting relationships isn't selfish, it's an act of self-care. It's about creating space in your life for relationships that nourish you, challenge you, and help you become the best version of yourself. One of the most common reasons people stay in toxic relationships is because they've convinced themselves that they don't deserve better. They've internalized the negativity of others to the point where they believe it's a reflection of their own worth. If someone has been critical, dismissive, or unsupportive for a long time, you may start to believe that you're not worthy of love, respect, or encouragement. This mindset can keep you stuck in relationships that are harmful, draining your energy, and leaving you feeling small. But the truth is, you are deserving of relationships that lift you up and support your growth. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see the best in you and encourage you to pursue your dreams. Sometimes the people in our lives may not be overtly negative or toxic, but they may still be holding us back in subtle ways. These are the people who are comfortable with you staying exactly where you are because your growth might challenge their own comfort zones. Maybe they love you, but they're afraid of losing the version of you they know. When you start to grow, to change, or to pursue your dreams, it can make them uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own fears or insecurities. They may not intentionally try to hold you back, but their resistance to your growth can still have a limiting effect on you. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everyone in your life will be happy for your success. As you start to reach new levels of achievement or pursue your dreams, you may notice that some people start to distance themselves or even criticize you. This can be painful, especially when it comes from people you care about. But it's important to remember that their reactions are not about you. They are a reflection of their own fears, insecurities, or jealousy. Your success may remind them of their own unfulfilled potential, and rather than being inspired by your growth, they may try to bring you back down to their level. It's essential to surround yourself with people who celebrate your wins, who support your growth, and who push you to keep going even when things get tough. These are the people who see your potential and believe in your ability to achieve greatness, even when you doubt yourself. They don't just tell you what you want to hear, they challenge you, hold you accountable, and encourage you to step outside your comfort zone. These are the relationships that fuel your growth and keep you moving forward on your path to success. Another important aspect of cultivating positive relationships is being mindful of the energy you bring to the table. Relationships are a two-way street, and it's just as important to be the kind of person who lifts others up as it is to surround yourself with people who do the same for you. This means being intentional about the energy you bring into your relationships, being supportive, encouraging, and present for the people in your life. When you show up with positivity, authenticity, and love, you attract the same kind of energy back into your life. It's also worth mentioning that quality is more important than quantity when it comes to relationships. You don't need a large circle of friends or acquaintances to feel fulfilled. In fact, having too many relationships can sometimes dilute the quality of the connections you have. It's better to have a few deep, meaningful relationships with people who truly understand you and support you, rather than a large network of people who don't add value to your life. It's about the depth of the connection, not the number of people in your circle. The people you surround yourself with not only influence your mindset and your outlook on life, but they also have a direct impact on your habits and behaviors. If you're surrounded by people who have a growth mindset, who are constantly striving to better themselves, and who take action toward their goals, you're more likely to adopt those same habits and behaviors. On the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who are negative, complacent, or unwilling to take risks, you may find yourself falling into the same patterns. We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, so it's crucial to choose wisely. It's also important to recognize that sometimes the people who love you the most may not always understand your vision or your goals. They may mean well, but their advice or opinions may not align with where you're trying to go. In these situations, it's important to trust yourself and your own intuition. You don't need everyone in your life to understand or agree with your path. What matters most is that you stay true to yourself and surround yourself with people who support you, even if they don't fully understand your journey. At times, you may need to distance yourself from people who are holding you back, even if it's difficult. This doesn't mean you have to cut people out of your life completely, but it does mean setting boundaries to protect your energy and your well-being. Boundaries are essential in maintaining healthy relationships, and they allow you to prioritize your own growth and happiness. When you set boundaries with people who are not supportive of your goals, you're sending a message to yourself and to the world that you value your dreams and your well-being enough to protect them. Another powerful tool in cultivating positive relationships is gratitude. When you appreciate the people in your life who support you, encourage you, and believe in you, you strengthen those connections. Expressing gratitude not only deepens your relationships, but it also reinforces the positive energy that flows between you and the people who matter most to you. Gratitude has a way of amplifying the good in your life, and when you focus on appreciating the people who lift you up, you attract more of that energy into your relationships. It's also worth acknowledging that relationships, like anything else in life, require effort and intention. It's not enough to simply expect others to support you or lift you up without also investing in those relationships. Building meaningful connections takes time, vulnerability, and mutual respect. It's about showing up for the people who show up for you, being there through the highs and the lows, and fostering a sense of trust and loyalty. Ultimately, the people you surround yourself with can either propel you forward or hold you back. The key is to be intentional about who you allow into your inner circle, to prioritize relationships that are aligned with your values and your goals, and to be willing to let go of relationships that no longer serve you. When you surround yourself with people who believe in you, challenge you to grow, and support your dreams, you create an environment that fosters success, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve to be in relationships that help you become the best version of yourself. One of the biggest reasons many people struggle with themselves is that they resist change. Change is inevitable in life, and yet we often find ourselves clinging to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us. Whether it's holding on to old habits, staying in environments that no longer align with who we are, or sticking to outdated beliefs, this resistance to change keeps us stuck in patterns that prevent us from growing into the person we are meant to become. The fear of the unknown can be paralyzing, and for many, the thought of stepping outside of their comfort zone is enough to keep them locked in a cycle of dissatisfaction. We often choose the comfort of familiarity over the discomfort of change, even if that familiarity is causing us pain or keeping us from reaching our full potential. Part of the reason we resist change is because of the stories we tell ourselves. We create narratives in our minds about who we are, what we're capable of, and what life should look like. These stories are often shaped by our past experiences, our upbringing, and the people around us. Over time, these narratives become so ingrained in our identity that we start to believe that they are unchangeable. We tell ourselves that we're not the kind of person who can succeed in a certain area, or that we're not capable of achieving the things we want. These stories limit us, and they keep us stuck in a version of ourselves that no longer fits who we truly are. Changing these stories means challenging deeply held beliefs, and that can be uncomfortable and even frightening. Another reason change is so difficult is that it requires us to let go of control. As human beings, we like to feel in control of our lives. We want to know what's going to happen, how things will unfold, and that everything will work out according to our plan. But life doesn't work that way. Change is unpredictable, and it often happens in ways that we can't anticipate or control. Letting go of the need to control every aspect of our lives means embracing uncertainty. And for many people, that uncertainty is terrifying. The unknown is filled with what-ifs, and our minds tend to focus on the worst-case scenarios. We worry about failure, rejection, and disappointment. This fear of the unknown can stop us from taking the steps we need to take to create positive change in our lives. Another challenge when it comes to change is that it often requires us to leave behind things that are comfortable, even if they are not good for us. Whether it's a job that no longer fulfills us, a relationship that isn't supportive, or a way of thinking that keeps us stuck. The idea of letting go can feel overwhelming. We may worry about what we'll lose or whether we'll regret our decision. Change can bring up feelings of loss, and we may find ourselves mourning the things we have to let go of, even when we know deep down that they are holding us back. This sense of loss can make it difficult to move forward, and we may find ourselves clinging to the past out of fear of what the future might hold. In addition to the emotional challenges that come with change, there is also the practical aspect of it. Change often requires effort, planning, and a willingness to take action. It's not enough to simply want change. We have to be willing to do the work to make it happen. This can be daunting, especially if we're facing big changes or long-held habits. The process of change can feel overwhelming, and we may find ourselves procrastinating or avoiding the steps we need to take. We may set goals, but then find it difficult to stay motivated or to follow through on our plans. The gap between where we are and where we want to be can seem so vast that we don't know where to start, and so we end up doing nothing at all. Another factor that makes change challenging is that it often requires us to confront our fears and insecurities. Change forces us to step outside of our comfort zone, and when we do that, we're forced to face the things that scare us the most. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of not being good enough, these fears can hold us back from making the changes we need to make. It's easier to stay in our comfort zone, where things feel safe and predictable, than to confront the unknown and face the possibility of failure. But the truth is, Growth happens outside of our comfort zone. In order to evolve and become the best version of ourselves, we have to be willing to face our fears and take risks, even if it means failing along the way. One of the most important things to understand about change is that it's a process, not an event. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always a straight path. There will be ups and downs, moments of progress and moments of setback. Change requires patience and persistence, and it's important to remember that growth takes time. We live in a society that values instant gratification, and we often expect change to happen quickly. When it doesn't, we can become discouraged or frustrated. But true, lasting change takes time, and it's important to be patient with ourselves as we navigate the process. It's also important to celebrate the small victories along the way. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. One of the keys to navigating change successfully is to cultivate a mindset of growth and flexibility. When we approach change with a fixed mindset, believing that our abilities, our circumstances, or our identity are set in stone, we limit ourselves. But when we adopt a growth mindset, we recognize that we have the ability to learn, grow, and adapt. We understand that change is an opportunity for growth, and we embrace it with curiosity and openness. This doesn't mean that change is easy, but it does mean that we are willing to face the challenges that come with it, knowing that they are a necessary part of the process. A growth mindset allows us to see obstacles as opportunities to learn, rather than as reasons to give up. It's also important to recognize that change is not something we have to do alone. Having a support system in place can make a huge difference in our ability to navigate change successfully. Whether it's friends, family, a mentor, or a coach, having people who believe in us, who hold us accountable, and who offer encouragement can help us stay on track. Change can be difficult, and there will be moments when we doubt ourselves or want to give up. In those moments, having someone who reminds us of our goals, who offers a listening ear, or who simply believes in us can provide the motivation we need to keep going. Surrounding ourselves with a supportive community can make the process of change feel less daunting and more achievable. It's also important to take care of ourselves during times of change. Change can be stressful, and it's easy to neglect our physical, mental, and emotional well-being when we're focused on making big changes in our lives. But self-care is essential in order to maintain the energy and resilience we need to navigate change. This means making time for rest, nourishing our bodies with healthy food, and finding ways to manage stress, whether that's through exercise, meditation, or spending time in nature. Taking care of our emotional well-being is just as important, and this may involve seeking out therapy, journaling, or practicing mindfulness. When we prioritize self-care, we are better equipped to handle the challenges that come with change. Another important aspect of change is learning to embrace failure as part of the process. Often we fear change because we fear failure. We worry that if we take a risk and it doesn't work out, we'll be worse off than before. But failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. Every failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to adjust our course. When we approach change with the understanding that failure is a natural part of the process, we are less likely to be discouraged by setbacks. Instead, we can use them as stepping stones on the path to success. The most successful people in the world didn't achieve their goals without failure. In fact, many of them failed numerous times before they succeeded. What sets them apart is their willingness to keep going, even in the face of failure. One of the most important lessons when it comes to change is the understanding that we are not defined by our past. Many people resist change because they are holding on to past mistakes, failures, or experiences. They believe that their past defines who they are and that they are stuck in a cycle that they can't break free from. But the truth is, we have the power to rewrite our story at any moment. Our past does not define us, it is simply a part of our journey. We have the ability to learn from our past, to grow from it, and to use it as a foundation for creating a better future. When we let go of the belief that we are defined by our past, we open ourselves up to the possibility of change.